Hey there, welcome. This is the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Oh, don't get too excited. This show's about to get ridiculous. You're going to think this whole show is satire if you look back in like 5 years. This will all make sense today, but this is something that will not make sense when you try to explain this to your kids. Like, you ever tried to explain to your kids like a collect phone call? They don't know because they never made a long-distance phone call. My kids hadn't even heard a dial tone. I just want you to like sort of zoom out when I'm talking about these stories and just imagine like you trying to explain this to someone like a younger person who's just born today and they don't know what's going on. You won't be able to explain some of this. Like I can't explain to my kids, like I can't explain parachute pants. Like what was that for? I don't know why we did that. Well, why did you make a little roll in the bottom of your jeans, like a little tight roll? I saw that in a picture. I don't know why we did that. So with that, we're going to start off looking at the hush money case is what it's called, which is weird because it's not really hush money. I mean, I've signed non-disclosure agreements. You probably signed non-disclosure agreements. Doesn't necessarily make it hush money, but I understand. That makes it sound more nefarious, makes it sound unethical, makes it sound bad. But in the hush money case, I'm not a lawyer or a legal expert, so we're going to bring in someone who is. Dun & Biles is a legal expert with the Biles Wilson Law Firm here in Dallas. Okay, now explain to the layman exactly what is going on in the... Yeah, y'all are a little late on that one. What exactly is going on now? We have, opening statements today? Is that what's going on?
Yes, we had opening statements followed by David Pecker testified for a short while before they adjourned for...
All right, that sounds familiar. That's the National Enquirer guy.
That's correct.
How has he rolled into this?
They started off with him because somehow this is part of their grand the grand conspiracy. Apparently, it's they think it's just terrible that Mr. Pecker was paying for stories and might have been tipping off Trump in the campaign as nose and eyes and ears, and somehow that's illegal. It's not correct, but that's the prosecutor's view of the world. I guess.
Wait, somehow what's illegal to tell him that there's about to be a bad story published about you?
Yep, that's the allegation, and they paid for I forget the Playboy model. They apparently paid her $150,000 for her story, and so they're somehow looping all these people into a grand conspiracy where it's not clear at all any conspiracy existed, much less any evidence of any crime.
Well, let's just say I think the closest analog we have for something like this would be the sexual harassment case against Bill Clinton by Paula Jones. There was a big payout in that. How is that different than this one? The $850,000 payout in the 90s, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, well, I think the answer is that Mr. Bragg ran on he was going to get Trump, and so he's cobbled together his theory of how to get Trump. That's the difference. These non-disclosure agreements, I'm literally working on a settlement agreement this afternoon for a case that has nothing to do with anything inappropriate. It has a non-disclosure agreement in it. When you get employed, sometimes your employment agreement has a non-disclosure agreement in it.
Yeah, we have those.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Any chance that these charges can stick? Because, I mean, if you can get this far, and we saw what happened with Letitia James, and we've seen what's happened in these other cases, I mean, is there a chance that this might come up with a guilty verdict?
These are troubling times, and with the jury, you don't know. I think with the rulings with this judge has previously made, I don't agree with them. But I just can't believe that if in the end there is a guilty, that would ever be upheld at the Court of Appeals. But we live in very strange and disturbing times. All
right, let's say he does get found guilty. Does this prevent him from running for president?
No, this should not in any way prevent him from running for president. But
what is he facing as far as sentencing goes? Could he be in jail?
Well, so there's a very limited chance, I think, on these particular claims that he lands up in jail. There's a chance that they may ask for a lesser included a misdemeanor charge. But yes, I guess in theory one could land up running for president while sitting in jail. But in all likelihood, he would pay the bond. He'd probably get a bond set pending appeal and be able to continue to run.
What is the name of the actual charge? I know you lawyers have like specific names for these things. What's this one's called? Do you know?
Well, in this one, it's a New York statute of falsifying records, and I think they indicted on 38 counts. So,
okay, so that sounds like something you could go to prison for.
Well, yeah, yes, you can. I don't think. Look,
Do people?
On the felony charge, yes. On the misdemeanor, I don't think. Look, this prosecutor won't prosecute anybody. I just go and prosecute this claim. So, yes, it is possible that one could land up in jail.
Dunham Biles, what's next? What's going to happen after this? What are we looking for? A bunch of witnesses coming to the stand or what?
Yeah, the prosecution is going to go walk through their witnesses. I understand that the prosecution, normally they give you a heads up a day in advance or so of who's coming, but they're afraid Trump will scare these people. So we won't know the order of the witnesses necessarily in advance. And they claim they're going to take 6 weeks to try this case. So,
Are we going to know everyone's name? Are we going to know these people?
Oh, I'm sure. These are all, you're going to see Stormy Daniels. You're going to see Michael Cohen. Who knows? Oh, Hope. There's a list of well-known people that I'm sure they're going to call this team.
Are they going to do cameras in the courtroom like the Johnny Depp trial? I kind of like that.
Yeah, no, we're not that lucky. There aren't cameras in the courtroom for this.
Dunham, how come they don't have cameras in the important court cases, but in the silly little divorce celebrity cases we get cameras?
Well, because it depends what state you're in and what the judges think about cameras. We don't get cameras in the U.S. Supreme Court either.
Right.
So each court does their own thing.
Because this could be like the 28th season of The Apprentice or something. I mean, we could get some real mileage out of this.
Yes, it could be. I'm sure it would be the most watched thing on daytime TV right now.
Dunham, do you have an answer for me on why when I see all the court sketch artists, you can't have cameras in the courtroom, but they have the sketch artists. Why does it always look like they're sketching chalk on a grocery bag? What's with that?
I don't know. I can't draw a stick figure, so I'm not going to criticize another person's actual art.
Yeah, well, look, they can draw better than me, but I question their choice of medium. Why is it chalk on a grocery bag? And no one can ever answer that. But other than that, you did a great job. This is Dunham Biles helping us out, understanding what's going on, opening statements in Trump's hush money case. Dunham Biles, Wilson Law Firm. Thanks for being on the James Show.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. All right. If you have any thoughts, questions, opinions on what's going on with the court cases, I'm open to take calls on that. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. We'll wrap up that, and then we'll talk about some of the crazy protests that are going on, the pro-Palestinian protests that are springing up on college campuses and bridges and highways and all that fun stuff, too. Coming up next on The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome. This is The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Let's go. Well, we have a situation in the Middle East which sounds so hacky in talk radio. I could say that almost any day I sat down in a talk radio chair for the last 2 decades, but this is even worse than usual. And actually, we kind of had a little bit of a calm, comparatively speaking, for a few years there. And this new flare-up keeps flaring. October 7th seems to be what lit the fuse. And then it's continued through almost constant barrage of rockets that are continuing to flow from Gaza and Lebanon and the West Bank. We added into that Iran, I like saying Iran, throwing a whole bunch of UAVs and rockets and missiles in an attempt to strike Israel. We had Israel striking back. We're waiting for another response, going back and forth. And a lot of people are asking the question, well, maybe the current administration's policies might have something to do with this. Anthony Russo from the Truth Will Set You Free podcast is on the James Show. Anthony, what do you think? Because we have some Republicans in the Senate, Ted Cruz among them, saying President Biden and Chuck Schumer's policies are emboldening Iran. What do you think?
Well, I think he's absolutely correct. And it's interesting, a couple things. You brought up October 7th as kind of this precipice of where things started to shift for Israel. But what people don't realize is the Iron Dome is constantly being put to work. The people that I know in Israel can tell you that there is a missile or a rocket that happens weekly. That's been their life for a long time. And I think that narrative gets missed. Israel has not been a peaceful place for the outsiders to which they are responding not only to October 7th, but because they have to defend their land. What Ted Cruz brought up, like the same way, is the fact that in November he was saying this, and that's where this quote is now coming up because Iran has now gotten involved, is the fact that we have had a slow and steady IV drip to Iran in the number of somewhere around $100 billion since the beginning of the Biden presidency through things passed in Congress, from Schumer to now today, the way that we're seeing Iran actually become not just the funder of terror, but actually creating terror themselves. And I think we're at a really, really a dangerous inflection point in our world.
So what are they doing besides the unfreezing of assets? You know, some people are calling it giving them $100 billion. Some people are saying it's unfreezing. Whatever it is, they now have access to a whole bunch of money they didn't have access before. Is there anything other than that is emboldening Iran?
Well, I think it's also the narrative. The propaganda war is all of a sudden turned on Israel, and trust me, I am not somebody that thinks that Israel as a government is completely innocent. But to start using terminology like genocide, you'll hear me talk about it on all my shows.
Oh, it's so exhausting. I can't stand it when they say genocide. Because if they really wanted to genocide them, it would have been done already. They could do it at any second now.
100% fact. And you know what? Is it war crimes? You can get into a whole bunch of different things that might be issues with the way things are going there. But this is a biblical war that's been going on forever. But when you change the narrative, when you actually create support for the terrorists, which is mind-boggling, we're seeing it on college campuses today. We're seeing these protests not just be pro-Palestine, but pro-Hamas. It shows a complete clueless amount of population, not only in the United States, but globally against Israel. You saw it in the United Kingdom as well, where Jewish people couldn't walk across the street a few months ago. So that's what's emboldened on top of all the funding. And you're correct, it's actually a release of sanctions that were brought on and off over the last 4 decades. That now they've released it and they've allowed those sanctions to roll off. So they have access to almost $100 billion. But now sanctions are being put back on in the last couple of days, but they don't know when they'll be enacted. It's very, very confusing.
So why is the Senate speaking up about this? They really don't have a whole lot of control over foreign policy other than appropriating funds. Is this just a political statement?
I mean, I think that's one way to look at it, absolutely. But I think the way that we do have control is because we have been the beacon and leader of the free world and unfortunately for some of our tax dollars, the world police. But because of the last couple of years of our administration, the way we handled Afghanistan, this is a side effect of that. This is a side effect of weakness from what is supposed to be the arbitrator of the world. And now we're at a point where, you know what, the crazies are running free. The dangerous terrorists are running free to kind of do what they want. And that's why we're seeing, as you said, the war in the Middle East. We don't want to talk about it because it just seems trite. This one's not trite because you're starting this, and I think you understand that, you're seeing China and Russia start to get the back of Iran. So now you've got three-headed snake when it comes to the global terror that is now taking sides against our one area that we're able at least to control, which is Israel. That is the reason why Israel is so important to us, is it allows us some kind of control and safety in the Middle East. And without that being there, all of a sudden, everything geopolitically is destabilized.
All right. So for your podcast, The Truth Will Set You Free, did you borrow that phrase from a civil rights movement or did you borrow that from the New Testament?
More from the New Testament than anything else. But it was more just the way I felt at the beginning of COVID. I was like, we need to start having some real conversations. And eventually, hopefully, the truth will set us free, but more biblical than anything else.
Y'all talk about this on your show? You talk about Iran and Israel and what's going on over there?
We do. We'll talk about it tomorrow night on our Tuesday night shows.
All right. Thank you very much, Anthony Russo, The Truth Will Set You Free podcast. You know, because that's great. Thanks for being on the show. But if you have a biblically named, or at least a podcast named in honor of a biblical concept, I'm sure Israel is going to be on your radar for episodes. Good stuff. All right. Do you have any comments on that? 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Coming up, it's time to learn a new word. Libs of TikTok is going to give you your word of the day. And then, you know what? We got to play Dead or Alive coming up in about 20 minutes. So a lot of fun stuff. Stick around. It's The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.